Hey you geeks! The last battle is coming, and there are still so many stories to tell, and many songs to be sung.
Oh, my love, some of us I know are bound to die.
The Towers of Midnight should not work. Its timeline is convoluted, there are too many plots, too many characters, and yet I struggled to find a thing wrong with it. Save the fact that I can't possibly fit it all in one video. Whatever I miss in this video, I'll cover when I review A Memory of Light's prologue. For now, here is most of the characters' magic system, world building, and the plots. Spoilers, of course. Egwene. Well, so much for the Armorlin recognizing the tower's tote to the Dragon Reborn, or listening to reason. Not that Rand gave her reason, but my remaining respect for her maturity, like convincing Nynaeve to return with words, was blown when she orchestrated Nynaeve's test, a test she'd never taken, a test she was not needed to orchestrate, and a test she made all about her. Just as Gawain made Egwene's problems all about him.
So we're perfect together.
I once compared her to Scarlett O'Hara, and frankly, my dears, I'm darn certain I'm right. The wind has taken her traditional seat of power, sending her to do anything to achieve the status she believes she was born to.
Hit like my dreams have went with the wind.
What wind?
Even though her perception is so very, very wrong. Maybe she's not that bad, barely. Any decency she has comes from displaying her beneficent self-interest among Aes Sedai and other female channelers, at least. She finally brought about the compromise between the Aes Sedai Wise Ones and Windfinders. Jordan seems to have been inching us towards this conclusion, so it's a relief to have it done with. Outside of these women, I believe she will sacrifice anything and anyone to get what she wants. Rand. Now that Rand has come down from his Rocky Mountain high,
his side is turned inside himself to try and understand.
He goes around offering apples to decent folk. I will devote an entire video to explain why I find this both incredibly creepy and cool. Instead, I'll focus on the fact that the cart driver's sister is named Elissa.
I still hear Elisa.
I don't know why Sanderson chose that name. I'd like to think it was in Jordan's notes. Back to Rand's newfound zenness, it appears he has magically healed his own brain, or at least balance with the Dark One's touch, or Moridin's influence. Though in Teleron Riyadh, it looked like a complete victory. He's also made other small victories by relying on people as he never had before. Last book he'd left Aradoman and Saldea to rot. Now, as he relies on people, he's able to do better.
I shall give you what you came for, and lots more besides!
Sure, Aitoralda the Bamf did his best, but he is not the Dragon Reborn. Rand has reached a balance, showing both fury at the Dark One, yet humility in face of the Borderlander monarch's anger at his actions.
Now that one I deserve.
Galad. Why does no one mention that Galad got stripped naked by the Questioners? He's like the only guy this happens to. The Questioners also accuse Galad of using the Dark One's power to kill Valda, which may not be far off. Galad was in the Void during that fight, a tool we've seen many male channelers use. Considering his lineage, he may have used Saidin even before it was cleansed. Would his preternatural idea of rightness be his madness?
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
He's always had a strong moral code, but he takes it to a whole other level. Galad's tactics with the White Cloaks nicely foreshadowed Perrin's conflict with the White Cloaks. Galad is also adorable in how he respects his mother.
He's a traitor, you know. Your father, for marrying her, that human whore.
White cloak to the core, yet still a good man, which makes his crush on Elayne doomed. She, although beautiful, has basically no moral scruples whatsoever. Also, I'm pleasantly annoyed at Sanderson for using Galad's reaction to Elayne as a fake-out for finding more gays, though it made that critical reveal all the more powerful when the hammer struck. Perrin.
This 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy.
I love Perrin's arc in this book, but it feels somewhat repetitive. Didn't he learn the wolf dream in The Shadow Rising? Didn't he patch things up with Fael in Crown of Swords? Then he also took a break from all that character and plot development to get snagged in the Elayne triangle. Through Perrin, we also revisit the end of the Gathering Storm. I found it fitting that Perrin witnessed Rand on Dragonmount. Perrin has always been the most willing to be with Rand when not distracted by Fael. I'm glad that his and Fael's relationship has grown. This retread was a necessary course correction for him, but it's still a retread. Perrin has truly, for reals this time, put down the axe, and now he has to deal with the hammer.
Stop! Hammer time!
Sanderson does make use of that wolf hammer pun by having Perrin both literally forge Mahalanir and form himself into a man who is also a wolf. As a man, it's great to see Perrin come into his own as a leader and enter Caemlyn in triumph again. Though I'm not quite sure what the bit with Boundless was. Has Noel entered Teleron-Riyadh in the flesh? Has he been dreaming in a den somewhere? In either case, wouldn't he be super dead by now? But if it helps Perrin find peace, that's good. I just wish I could feel the same. Matt.
I am a roving gambler, I've gambled all around.
Is back to his not a bloody nobleman ways, though still different. I don't know if this is character growth or writing style. That letter was hilarious, yet wasn't out of character. He is, after all, just a regular farmer, an adoptive father and role model for Ulver, who likes lace and sturdy boots.
These boots are made for walking.
Also, Sanderson got a bit self-indulgent with his whole man wins at game he doesn't understand bit, with Matt playing Karanko Spit inside the Dusty Wheel, the only inn in Randland which I believe Hoyd has patroned. I wonder Hoyd has not told the tale of how Matt dealt with the Golem.
Madness. This is Sparta!
Lastly, Matt has finally lost that eye, as foretold by Min, the Finn, and an inordinate number of fan arts. I didn't mind the spoiler, since the manner of losing the eye was quite surprising and quite epic. Elayne. She puts up a strong front of being prissy and bratty, which is sometimes genuine, yet underneath lurks the rather reasonable peacemaker from books 3 to 5 or so. Nice to see her reappear. She also tells Gawain to stop hating Rand.
You know, you're starting to sound like my father.
Good. At least one of us does.
And sure, Elayne is still impulsive, going to interrogate the Black Aja alone like an idiot. I can't help but liking her as she stabilizes power and prepares for the last battle, either against the Shadow or the Shan-Chan. Nynaeve. It was worth reading Moiraine's testing in New Spring to get a grip on how outlandish Nynaeve's testing was. Back in New Spring, the sisters considered Elayne conjuring a vision telling Moiraine that her mother had died to be distasteful. So Egwene forcing Nynaeve to watch her loved ones die is ridiculous. Without a brain to tug, balefire seems like a reasonable response for Nynaeve. If what it means to be Aes Sedai is to ignore the helpless, the endangered, and the Dark One himself if they distract from serenity, then Nynaeve is better off not being one. Lan. For once, Tolkien wrote a story beat more succinctly than Sanderson. For Nynaeve, like Arwen, sent Aragorn an army and a banner to fight the Dark Lord. Aragorn took it up in a page or two. Lan, like every other stubborn protagonist in this series, took half a book to accept help. Not that I mind the gruff bros of the Borderlands shenanigans.
Have you learned nothing of the stubbornness of dwarves?
You might as well accept it. We're going with you, laddie.
Or learning what happened to that merchant who'd made me cry 2 books ago. No problem at all. Biblical bubbles.
My bubbles.
Have you noticed all the other biblical parallels coming to fruition, especially in these last books? Back in The Gathering Storm, Jordan himself wrote of hammering plowshares into polearms. The bubbles in evil in general have graduated from personal torments into plague-level threats, particularly the snake bubbles of evil, which afflicted Perrin's camp and sounds like something out of Exodus? Oh, numbers. Sanderson keeps it up with the bubble that strikes Tyr, returning the people to dust.
All we are is dust in the wind, dude.
Though Sanderson doesn't quite carry off Jordan's low-key homages. Nynaeve saying that the people's substance was removed seems to invoke the School of Athens. I was under the impression that Randland was intentionally set outside of that school of thought, like the Old Testament is, as well as Norse mythology. I find this metaphysical departure from Jordan's perspective more jarring than any of the characters in the book, though Jordan's biggest biblical plot point comes from the New Testament, since breaking the 7 seals comes from Revelation. Thus Rand may have the authority to break the seals, as he is a lion cub of Andor, but that's rarely mentioned. For which I'm grateful, since direct allegory in the form of Jesus lions is less fun. In keeping with the low-key imagery, I'd wager that after Rand faces the Dark One next book, the last enemy to be destroyed will be death. Ladies of Order. The Lord of Chaos has been running around for a few books now. While his identity remains unknown, I'd say his duality, the Ladies of Order, are easily identifiable. Egwene has united the Tower and finally instituted basic civil procedure on their governing body. Egwene's beneficent self-interest is good for one thing, I suppose. Morghese used her legal nuances and sense of justice to help unite the 2 rivers and Gildan back to Andor and Elayne. Elayne also claimed Cairhien, forging the new Court of the Sun with its strong ties to Saldaea, Mayenne, and even the White Cloaks. I would, however, trust Galad to do.
And do the next right thing.
Elayne, for all her haughtiness, treats her people with respect. Respect is not the word I'd use for Tuon's relationship with her people. I'd say she regards them as one regards a horse to ride. She treats the horse well because it could buck and kill her at any time, but it's still a horse. None more horsey than Elida, who, when not offering up other Aes Sedai to take her place, has now taught the Seanchan traveling, which is just as terrifying as Andor creating firearms. It's incredibly ironic, in a way I'm sure Jordan wanted, that these ladies of order, through organization and control, have brought the world to the brink of another great war, which may be more terrible than any sown by the Lord of Chaos. If Egwene's antics don't cause the forces of the light to fight each other at Marilor, then according to Aviendha's visions, their coalitions will eventually destroy each other, all because of perceived prior attacks.
Remember the Main, Plymouth Rock, and the Golden Rule!
Especially when no attack actually occurred, like the Main for the Spanish-American War, or Vietnam's Gulf of Tonkin incident. The Seanchan's fear of the Aes Sedai's weapon of mass destruction should sound familiar, as well as their habit of keeping attack plans on their allies.
We have a contingency plan to invade Canada.
Graendal's Cage.
Sweet dreams are made of these.
Randall Thor basically sold his soul to the Dark One to eliminate Graendal, and all he got was Arengar and Dallana. This is the book where they reveal Graendal killed Osmodion. For Graendal, with his blood and Arengar's on her hands, Mesaana's eventual demise is sort of a 3 strikes and you're out deal. Graendal basically confirms that Rand was acting exactly as Moridin would have. Thus Rand surprised Graendal, but in a way that was still predictable. It therefore makes sense that blunt, straightforward Perrin was able to outmaneuver Graendal. She had Slayer there to sow chaos and kill wolves, but he was no match for that ridiculous trial, followed by honor unparalleled. Though Child Bayar took a stab at finishing the job, and Slayer did technically fulfill the dark prophecy by killing Hopper. That death was heartbreaking. Mesaana's plan was quite good, with the Seanchan killers spreading chaos and only Gawain to stop them. Her odds seemed great. Yet Rand's mercy to the Damane from Altara and Gawain's 2 remaining brain cells actually got together and did something good. Going back further, the Black Aja has a long familiarity with Tel'aran'rhiod, as it's where Egwene first fought them in the Stone of Tyr, when Perrin was also running around the Stone of Tyr. Funny, it's taken them this long to meet in Tel'aran'rhiod, though I do like that they meet as equals.
What are you doing here?
Mesaana's plan would have worked had it not been for the Dream Spike. Only Mesaana, who still sees power in cages and chains, lets herself fall to the unlikely duo. Tower of Ghenjai. Those bloody snakes and foxes have made their play. The characters are acting far more thoughtful than in early books. Matt slowly realizing that he has the key in his hands just as the Aelfinn closed in is Sanderson's scene sculpting at its finest. Jordan's Matt may have accidentally found the way out as he had accidentally married Tuon. Or if Matt had a plan, as he sort of had at the Battle of Cairhien, we would not have been privy to such thoughts. Though there is still a continuity of Matt not knowing when he speaks in the Old Tongue, and the feel of a good 80s movie gone epic.
It should have kept on going down that way. Should have gone straight to that castle.
This is essentially the tale of a prince going to rescue a sleeping beauty from a magic tower. Though Sanderson doesn't tread on that, nor does he really consider that Jayne bloody Farstrider, the most experienced man in the world, would be a tasty morsel for the Finn, though not as tasty as an Aes Sedai, savior of the Tarviran, who will presumably save the world in the next book.
If you people alone for just a minute, look what happens. Everything's gone to pot.
Without Moiraine, the plot fell off the rails. Rand nuked a village, Perrin was victim to a love triangle, and Mat married the Seanchan noble. With her, we might stand a chance at the last battle. I hope we win. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you would like to see more. Your patronage is greatly appreciated.